Room237, and I'm continuing kind of my kick of reviews of films from A24 Films, which, as I've been saying, is pretty much becoming my favorite modern or recent film company. Just most of what they put out is just the epitome of what I look for in more modern horror films, and I'm gonna continue looking for more and reviewing more. So far, everything I've reviewed, I pretty much loved. I mean, not everything has been a hit. Loved The Witch, loved The Lighthouse, loved It Comes at Night. I will be talking about Saint Maud, which is one of my favorite horror films of the 2020s so far. Another exactly what I look for in modern horror films. Loved Killing of a Sacred Deer, but not everything is a hit. I mean, you have Hereditary, which, even though I think it's wonderfully made and masterfully acted, I hated the ending. Midsummer was a legit rant. It has gorgeous cinematography and looks great. It's very enjoyable to look at, but I thought it was kind of predictable, nothing special. It didn't live up to anything, at least I don't think. But at least I can still say some good things about Midsummer. There's even some non-horror films that I'll be doing. Like, for example, despite its title and its premise, this is not a horror film, but a ghost story. I thought this was a very, very good film. There's also Walk by Tom Hardy that I thought was excellent. Most Violent Year, which I saw years ago. I have to watch that again. That was really good. But then, of course, you get movies like Tusk, which isn't that great. I thought I reviewed that, but I didn't. And unfortunately, this is another film that really isn't a hit. And this is a film I wasn't too crazy about. Came out in 2021, and that is False Positive, which it was made by A24, but it was put out through Hulu in 2021. Actually, it premiered at Tribeca, then it was released on Hulu. It was directed by John Lee, who I think is known for more of his surreal, dark comedy stuff, like Wonder Chosen and what was that other one? Xavier, Renegade Angel. This didn't have a lot of... It had moments, little tiny spurts of surrealism, but he directed it and he wrote it with Ilana Glazer, who is the star. And I was wondering why she looked familiar, because I had not watched them, but I had seen some of her comedy specials on Netflix. And she's our lead, and she actually wrote the screenplay with the director. Also, Alyssa Nutting also helped write it. And Glazer and Lee also produced it. And it stars Glazer, Justin Theroux, who I haven't seen in a while, but I always liked him as a character actor. His small role in American Psycho, really liked him in Mulholland Drive, which I think I'm going to need glasses soon. So if I ever do get glasses, I want to get the ones that Justin Theroux had in Mulholland Drive. So it's good to see him again. Sophia Bush, and a villainous turn by Pierce Brosnan. Now, and the music was by Yair Elazar Glotman and Lucy Railton. Now, the music was one of the big positives about this film. And the name Sophia Bush sounds familiar. Was she the lead in that? I think she was. Yeah, she was the lead in the Hitcher remake. Okay. which is not a good movie. And the thing about it did not really feel like an A24 film. It did feel more like a Hulu original. It felt more like a generic thriller horror film. And it's another one that if you've seen enough horror films, especially with this as the topic, you pretty much know how it's going to end. It's another one that, obviously from the title, it deals with pregnancy. And, I mean, yes, it's very close to Rosemary's Baby. At least the build-up of the film is pretty much the same, where it's all these weird things are happening, hallucinations, dreams, strange occurrences, everyone acting weird, seeming like there's some sort of conspiracy against her, but is it all real? Is it all in her head? Is she crazy? Are they trying to make her look crazy? If so, why? It does that Rosemary's Baby thing. And I'm not going to get into spoilers until, I put up the spoilers page, because it's still a fairly new movie. Well, it came out last year. So really, the only outcomes is is it a cult? Is it, is the doctor just a deranged guy? Is she crazy? You pretty much know the number of outcomes that you're going to get right from the beginning, especially knowing that this is a sort of pregnancy-driven horror film. Now, the performances, I'll say, were decent. It was well acted, had a great score, wasn't even that poorly directed. I mean, there's a lot of shots that were pretty neat or interesting or cool looking. It did kind of get to a point where there's some overly stylish moments that didn't really fit. You watch like a giallo and something stylish, it kind of flows with everything. When you have a movie that feels and looks mostly kind of generic and then you put in some style, it sticks out. And I knew right off the bat, the opening of this film, I knew I was kind of in trouble, because actually my last video was the answers to the Q&A, and one question was, what are your biggest pet peeves, or what horror tropes do you find most annoying? And I said jump scares and exposition, which this film doesn't really have, but it has another one that I forgot to mention, and this can really be the death nail to a film, and that is, it opens up with the ending, or like a shot of the ending, to kind of set up what's gonna happen, and then we go back, and it will say 2 weeks earlier, and it works its way up. That doesn't work with horror for me. I mean, you can have a movie like Goodfellas or Casino where they do that. Start kind of towards the end of the middle, kind of give us a taste of what we're gonna get, go back and work forward. But when your whole movie is build up like this, it really can kill the momentum, and the pacing is kind of an issue with this as well. And it's gonna sound weird saying that an A24 film has pacing issues, because a lot of their movies are rather slow. They're slow burns, but there's just something about they're so intriguing, engaging, engrossing. This one, where it's so generic, the pacing does feel more like an issue. I already lost my train of thought on that with the pacing. But, and it's all building up, like it's supposed to be like this insidious, not like the movie, The Word, but that it grows with the tension and trying to build to this ending, and just giving us that little tiny hint, I think can kill all of it. I mean, you take a perfect horror movie that's built on build-up, The Shining. If it opened up with Jack Nicholson It opened up with Jack chasing Danny through the hedge maze, and then he just after he yells Danny, cut to black, and it says like 3 months earlier, and it would probably kill the movie. So that's the first thing. And the story is okay. So you have Alana Glazer, who plays Lucy, her husband Adrian, played by Justin Theroux. They've been trying and failing at having a baby. They go to this very sought after, top of the line doctor, Dr. Hindle, played by Pierce Brosnan, which I will say he is kind of a good, I mean, you already know by the poster, the trailer, this kind of film, that he's the bad guy. And anytime you get like a handsome, charming British actor, he's going to be a good villain. There's just something about him. And so, yeah, he does have this, he is kind of intriguing. He is fun to watch. And I remember when this came out, because on Facebook, all these horror groups, and on Instagram, when they talk about new films, we got Pierce Brosnan taking this, a turn for horror as a villainous gynecologist. But he's very innovative. Like he found a way to combine test tube fertilization and in utero fertilization. So Lucy is picked for that. She's inseminated, and throughout her pregnancy, she experiences hallucinations. Seems like she gets all these vibes from people. It seems like they're out to get her. It's nowhere near as claustrophobic or paranoia filled as, say, Rosemary's Baby. That's definitely the pinnacle of how to do this kind of film. I have not seen the whole thing of the Rosemary's Baby remake. The original is one of my favorite films. I love the original Rosemary's Baby. I still need to review that, actually. And of course, it's every time something happens, there's something else to kind of make it look like she's crazy. And where it seems like the first half hour, 45 minutes, everything seems fine. And she just kind of gets I don't even remember what set her off to be like, Dr. Hindle's kind of strange. But instead of being like, oh, you're crazy, and trying to make her feel like she's suffering from some sort of mental illness during all this, the movie takes this new angle. I don't know if it's new or not. I haven't heard it before, but baby brain, which, they say is this sort of irrational paranoia that happens to new mothers during pregnancy. And all like the Rosemary's Baby breadcrumbs are there. Like, she starts to suspect that her husband is in on it. He seems to be getting really close to Dr. Hindle and really trying to push his law and his kind of expertise on her, make sure she follows him. She wants to go to someone else, like she wants to go to a midwife. Even all of her friends, which I don't know if they're work colleagues or if they're friends, but they all start to kind of act weird towards her too and seem like they're turning on her. There is a sort of sub motif of Peter Pan, because her first ultrasound shows male twins and a single female. So they have the option, the boys are healthier, the girl's a little smaller. You could have all three, or you could choose both, either just have the boys or just have the girl. Ultimately, she decides the girl, and she wants to name Wendy, and there's this kind of Peter Pan sub-theme throughout the whole film. Even to the point where there's like a Peter Pan, like a first edition book at the baby shower, which she has a hallucination of. And then what I won't say until I get into spoilers, but there's one thing like one of the final scenes that is sort of symbolic of Peter Pan. And some people are talking about how shocking this movie is, and I will say this could have been another straightforward but very predictable sort of thriller in the vein of like a Rosemary's Baby. But when it gets to the end, it reminded me of Don't Breathe, because it gets really into like sleaze territory in like the last few minutes. But like her hallucinations, she has dreams of her husband and Dr. Hindle having an affair in a hotel room, or that she's drowning in a bathtub. I think she had one dream or hallucination about giving birth and it was all messed up. There are some nice stylish scenes though, like when she decides to, I think they call it reduce, but sort of terminate the pregnancy of the twins so that the girl can grow. And Pierce Brosnan, we just kind of get this view of him. The legs are up here, and it goes like all red. And it almost kind of makes him look like the devil. So at first I was like, okay, are they going full like cult of Rosemary's Baby? There's scenes like that are kind of stylish and neat. Or when they talk about certain, like, I don't know if it's the midwife talks about what it feels like, the beauty of birth, and it gets into more surreal, artistic looking imagery. But that's very minimal. And again, the score is very good, and it doesn't sound like anything else that I could think of, but it was good thriller kind of, I had like these pounding kind of tribal drums and good instrumentation. I don't know what else to say. Not really too much more to say before I get to spoilers, but eventually she gets that feeling that everyone's turning on her. Whatever company she was working for, she was given this major account, and then when her pregnancy really starts coming in, which Glazer actually had a baby. It says on here like July of 2021, which I think was like a month after this came out, but this was shot in 2019. I think this was when COVID was either really hitting or they were starting to let up. Oh no, it was at the end of 2019. So I think it was the release that really brought it from like 19 to 21. But eventually, she's dropped from being the lead of the account, and people are just kind of making her look like she's out of it. Like she goes to bring Adrian some lunch, and when he asks her what's up, she's like, what, I can't bring you lunch? And he's like, you already brought me lunch. Or she finds this secret file that could prove that Hindle is up to no good in Adrian's office safe. She gives it to one of her friends, Sophia Bush, who does use it against her because she was worried about her mental state. So she went behind her back to Adrian, who says that he doesn't even have an office safe. So yeah, baby brain is this sort of subplot or something that they're using against her, telling her that she has to, I guess, make her sound crazy. There's not too much I can say other than that before getting into spoilers, but the whole thing about a horror movie built around pregnancy is it is something that is very relatable. It's probably very easy because most people could probably relate to being pregnant or being with someone who is pregnant, just kind of knowing the fears and anxieties uh, of, of that situation, and just anything beyond that could just be overwhelming. So it'd be very easy to make a horror movie like that, but I've also seen some where it's very easy to fall flat on that. I mean, Rosemary's Baby, classic, absolute classic movie. The original French version of Inside, that's how you do a home invasion movie with someone that's pregnant. But here, if you're going the Rosemary's Baby route, there's really only so many outcomes that you can really have. And this one takes that harsh, don't breathe turn into sleaze territory. But other than that, yeah, it is kind of by the numbers, kind of generic. I mean, it is well shot, it is well acted. I can give it that. But, and I'm only holding up these two because they're the only ones I have here with me right now. But you look at other things on A24's catalog, especially like The Witch, The Lighthouse, It Comes at Night, Killing of a Sacred Deer, even other ones that aren't as artistic and may seem a little more straightforward, like say Green Room with Patrick Stewart or Anton Yelchin. They're all much better films. And I think the biggest issue with this one is, yeah, it's just kind of generic. It just, that's the only word that I can describe it. There's nothing super, and I mean, yeah, the scenes that people will say were shocking were kind of, I mean, there was one moment where I was like, is she really going to do that? Has she really now gone off the deep end? But I mean, it's on Hulu. It's worth checking out, I guess, especially, you know, if the idea of pregnancy or horror films built around pregnancy is something you're into or find scary. But knowing ahead of time that it's A24, don't think you're going to get like a Witch or a Lighthouse or a Saint Maud or anything like that. It does feel, it actually kind of looks and feels, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but like amongst the better made Blumhouse films. It does look and feel more like, I don't want to say bigger studio because Blumhouse makes movies very cheap as well, but I guess more of a streamlined or mainstream type a production. Maybe Blumhouse isn't the right choice, but they have some. But so it's not that I dislike the film. I definitely didn't love it. I guess I'm just indifferent. It's just it didn't get the best reviews. Like I think it has a 47 on Rotten Tomatoes. That's something I can agree with. But for all its flaws, it does have some pros as well. Again, well shot, well acted. The score was great. Unfortunately, some of its structuring, like putting the ending at the beginning, then working up, it did feel like it took too long to get into the actual events of the film. And even then, it didn't feel like there was enough there to really kind of help it along. Like it didn't establish that feeling of fear, anxiety, and paranoia that we're supposed to feel for this character. There wasn't really a whole lot about Pierce Brosnan other than knowing he's the villain already that really, you know, the things that set her off initially, and it just seems kind of like it's hurrying. Like it took too slow to get to it, but then it's like it's trying to get to, as soon as she starts feeling off, it's like it's trying to stampede to get to like the really, I guess, juicy parts. But so yeah, I'm kind of perfectly in the middle about this. Would I say it's the worst A24 film or the least best, because they're all pretty good that I've seen so far. Or mostly, no. I would say it's better than Tusk. I'm trying to think of some other ones that aren't really that great. But anyway, so the best I can say, it's on Hulu, so stream it. It wouldn't really hurt, but it's not that great, but it's not that bad. So yeah, anyway, spoilers. So yeah, she finds that file in Adrian's safe, gives it to her friend, and her friend's husband, I guess, is a lawyer. So here, let me fix this light here. But then during her baby shower, I think that same friend calls her by her real name, which she goes by Lucy, but I think her real name was yeah, actually doesn't even say on here. Oh, Lucia or Lucia, but she goes by Lucy. That's the friend that I think gives her the Peter Pan first edition that she thinks starts to look like it's bleeding, and calls her by her real name. I'm guessing because she looked at the file or whatever. And yeah, she said, well, I was worried about your mental state because you were acting crazy, you were acting paranoid, so, but also I've had like 3 miscarriages. I really wanted a baby, so now I'm going to this doctor. Oh, because she found prescription bottles from Dr. Hindle, so she knows her friend is going to, after she just gave her this file trying to expose him. So she feels lost. And I will say the nurses, which seem to, they have this very Stepford Wives kind of like, wow, have a good day. Just constant smiles and almost like robotically polite. And this is when the friend tells her, he said he doesn't even have an office safe, so baby brain's taken over. But that's when she goes into labor, and her midwife, which Grace, she was advertised the way she found her as sort of this cultural of African-American goddess. And so she wanted to go through her. And while she's giving birth, she finds out it was a boy. So the termination that they did was for the girl. They went behind her back. And then, you know, there was this heavy bleeding. Something went wrong with the placenta, so she had to go to the hospital. And, you know, she feeling totally betrayed by her own doctor and her husband, because they gave birth to the twins instead of the girl. They totally did the opposite of what they said they were going to do. So while depressed, she goes to see Grace, who now, her office and her demeanor and her wardrobe is no longer the ethnic and cultural Grace that she knew. Seems more of like a just of everyday person, however you want to say it. She even brings that up. You know, she's like, didn't your office and everything be more cultural? And she's like, I'm not your cultural goddess or whatever. It's like, I'm just your midwife. And she tells her she can't solve her problems for her. So Lucy goes to the Hindle's clinic to confront him personally, and sees the really Stepford Wivey nurse come out of this room called the lab, which when she goes in there, this is when she finds this big bag that had her placenta in it with the little female fetus still attached to it. And also this is where she finds out from that nurse that Adrian, who I don't remember what his job was before, but decided to join Hindel's gynecological practice. And I don't even remember it going into great detail as to like why Adrian would do that and why like Lucy had to be one of the patients or whatever, but Hindel's real motivation is that his freezer is full of his own sperm. He inseminates all his female patients with his own seed because he feels his genes are more superior, and he's just gonna spread male births throughout the world through his practice. And this was kind of stylish. I mean, she kicks him in the shin. It kind of goes quiet. She grabs a mirror, and we get like this slow motion, like how was the mirror kind of coming into shot, revealing his screaming face. And then like when it connects, we get the shot from the very beginning when she's bloody, walking down the street, holding her file and the bag of placenta. And as I'm going to mention in my review for this, how it had that ending similar to Censor, where it's what the character thinks is going on and what's really going on. This didn't do it as well. Actually, it just kind of more filled in the blanks. Like, the nurse came in, she attacked the nurse and took one of the probes, like tried shoving it down the nurse's throat. I thought I was gonna kill her, but then the nurse like pulls it out. I was like, trained myself not to have a gag reflex. But you know, Lucy grabs the, I don't know if she kills, I don't know if it was like lethal, because it was the same red liquid used for the termination surgery. But she hits the nurse with it, and then she gets on top of Dr. Hindle, who's on the table, and just beats the hell out of him. And then she knocks over his fridge. There's a funny moment where she walks out into the waiting room covered in blood. It's like, you're going to want to find a new doctor. And when she gets home, now she's really hallucinating. Like, everything was kind of elaborated. Like, it was part of Hindel's. So maybe Grace was part of his plan. Make them think she's this totally different practice, like with the cultural aesthetic and everything. But even that's all sort of part of the elaborate hoax. But now she's probably so torn and broken down and betrayed that she really is hallucinating or really does have baby brain. Like, she gets home, she picks up her two boys, walks over to the window, and she like lifts them and they just like float outside up into the sky. I guess symbolic of the Peter Pan idea. And at first I was like, okay, is this gonna do the Censor and Saint Maud thing where like she's looking at them blissfully as they float away, but then we're just gonna see babies falling when it shows what's really going on? No. Adrian comes home. She confronts him about how he knew it was going to be the boys and he betrayed her. He says, there was a deal that was going to help us out. That's why I did it. She gives them both screaming boys, forces him out. And then she grabs the placenta bag, takes the fetus out, sits down, and she starts, she's just holding it like this. And she starts undoing her shirt, and I'm like, are they really gonna make her do this? And yeah, she just puts it up, attempts to breastfeed it. And then the ending shot is she hallucinates it starting to suckle and like grab with its little fetus hands. And we see the look of joy on her face as that happens. So yeah, it seemed like this really like Rosemary's Baby-esque thriller that took the don't breathe sleazy turn right at the end, all the way down with trying to, you know, suffocate a nurse with one of the gynecological probes, showing that he's the one that's inseminating everyone with his own sperm. You don't see the sperm all over the place when she knocks the fridge over, but the idea of it. And then just taking that fetus and thinking you can breastfeed with it, hallucinating that it's real. It's a pretty harsh turn. It's kind of more jarring because it's so far out there from what the rest of the film's kind of setting up. Like, it doesn't really feel like it's going to try to go that far. I mean, you might be thinking Satanist cult at worst, but okay, it went there. I wasn't expecting it to do that. But yeah, other than that, it's a fairly generic film. Nothing overly special about it. Yeah, it had its stylish moments, had a good score. I thought Glazer did carry the film just fine. Unfortunately, Pierce Brosnan, the thing that makes him most interesting is the fact that we know he's the villain before we even watch it. Like, just the way it's advertised and just the kind of film it is, we know he's the villain. So even when he's being nice and polite, just that charming English doctor just kind of makes it seem like a slick villain already. It's not like he's doing anything super villainous that's kind of intriguing us. And it's really not until the scene where she confronts him in the lab does he actually act like a villain. No, he doesn't really do anything to try to keep her under his control or anything, like Rosemary's Baby. But yeah, as of right now, I would say it's the one I would put the lowest in like my rankings of the ones I've reviewed so far. I think this is the 10th one that I've done by A24. And that's only because I think Midsommar was so well shot, and you know, the sound design and the editing. It's a beautiful looking film. Midsommar is. There's a lot more I can say about Midsommar technically than I can this one. This one, I think I might be more positive story-wise and just how it unfolds. But yeah, if this is amongst the worst that A24 has to offer, then it's no wonder why they're my favorite modern film company. And so yeah, I think my next review is going to be Saint Maud. I cannot wait to rewatch this just as a refresher because I loved it the first time. But yeah, that is 2021's False Positive, and thank you for watching.